All right, now we're going to go ahead and get underway. We've got a full agenda here, so we'll try to keep this on schedule. My name is Gino Johnson. I'm the president of the Nordic Board of Directors, so I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I'll just quickly kind of cover what we've got on the agenda. So I'm going to take a minute to introduce all the board members, and then we've got an update from Jim Gowdy, who's the director of coaching. We've got an update from Marcel Choquette, who's the director of operations. A couple of important pieces we're going to talk through tonight. One of the goals that the board has come up with is to, as a club, we want to identify and develop outstanding soccer citizens. We're actually announcing our initial outstanding soccer citizen tonight. And then we're also going to go through some important updates relative to the New England Premiership, which is a league that has existed for some time. Jim's going to be talking about plans relative to the MEP. And then we've also got a couple of updates relative to Nordic Cup and some things happening there. So just quickly to introduce members of the board. We've got a couple of board members that are not here tonight, but just to kind of acknowledge members of the board. I want to thank the board for the time they put in to help with the club. Members of the board here, obviously Jim Gowdy, Marcel Choquette, Jim Dillon here, Randy King, who acts as the secretary for the board, Brian Monahan on the board, Tess Sweat right there, Phil Martin, and let's see, any other board members here? I know Lynn Allen is not able to make it tonight, Lynn Allen Schmoller, and then Kara Albertelli is another board member who's not able to join us tonight, and I think that is our full board. Andrew Fluelli is also on the board but unable to join us tonight. So that's really the agenda I wanted to talk through. We also just don't want to overlook, we have some fantastic sponsors that support the club, and we're going to acknowledge and recognize them tonight. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn over the agenda here to Marcel, and he's going to talk us through a couple of items here next.
Welcome, everybody. Again, plenty of beverages in the back, snacks in our back. We're going to try to move through the agenda as quickly as you can. First of all, I want to welcome everybody. I'm privileged to be the person who gets to acknowledge our Soccer Citizen Awards. These young 5 people are the finalists that we chose as a committee. They were nominated by parents. They were nominated by club administrators, present Nordic coaches, and past Nordic coaches as well. The 5 finalists were chosen. To give you a list of their accomplishments would mean that this meeting is going to go on for hours and hours and hours and hours. But I think it's important to recognize a couple of things that these young individuals are involved in. Many of them are 3-sport athletes. They're active church members. They're involved with Camp Tecumseh. They support Vermont's Children's Hospitals, and they're involved in multiple community and school leadership groups. And that's just to name a few. At this time, I'd like to recognize the 4 finalists and ask them to come up to Coach Gowdy and receive their award. Sierra McClay, Hannah Corrigan, Jackson Loeffler, and Natalie McMahon. If those 4 individuals are here, if they could come on up, please. We can give them a round of applause.
Sure.
If we could just get a good, quick photo shot, guys, please. I think you can sit down. Unless you really want to be in it. This year's recipient of the Nordic Soccer Club Citizen Award. She's been part of Nordic for 7 years. She's also been involved in our Center of Excellence program as a younger player. She is also an Olympic development player. One of Allie's greatest strengths is that she takes every opportunity that she can get to improve herself as a person and as an athlete and as a soccer player. Outside of soccer, Allie's list of activities are extensive. Here's how she spends some of her time. Recruiting and creating and being a participant of the CVU golf team. Great choice. Volunteers for All Breed Rescue, Top Soccer, the Go Nordic soccer program, volunteers at youth soccer camps, key club member, Refugee Outreach Club, STEM Club, Red Cross Club, Athletic Leadership Council, and she even still finds some time to organize a food drive for the Williston Food Shelf. As Allie has demonstrated, she can be a high-level athlete, make her teammates better, and more importantly, make the world around her a little bit better of a place. She takes the approach, be the difference that you want to see. Our country, more than ever, in my opinion, needs outstanding citizens who are willing, like Allie, to be selfless. Having had the opportunity to work with Allie, I've seen her demonstrate it's not what you can take from the game and take from others, but it's what you can give to the game and what you can give to others. On behalf of the selection committee, it is my honor to announce this year's recipient for the Nordic Outstanding Citizenship Award, and that goes to Allie Basashi.
Wait, you gotta turn here.
Nope, thanks.
Hold on.
That's for your mom.
Well done.
We also have two long-serving Nordic Committee individuals who have chosen to use their free time a little bit differently as they move forward. First person I'd like to recognize is Roger Doc Knackle. He has been an instrumental board member and a past president of our organization. His involvement started as a parent and somehow morphed into a 6-year commitment and service to the club with long meetings, evenings, weekends, etc. We have a small token of our appreciation for all your years of support, Doc, and if you could come forward at this time and receive your award from Coach Gowdy. That can be for coffee or your beverage of choice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
The other person that we'd like to acknowledge, and I'm sure that many people in this room have had contact with her, she's unable to be with us tonight as she's traveling with her husband, is Lisa Nostram, our bookkeeper and the true brains of our financial operation. Somehow, she managed to make sure that all staff members got paid, tournament entry fees were made on time, and every player was registered with every appropriate soccer organization. She always managed to do this with a shoestring budget. Lisa's money skills have served the club well through some of our challenging financial times. I'd like to just acknowledge Lisa. We miss her dearly. She's spending more time with her family and helping with her dad's business, and we wish Lisa the absolute best. These are the 3 drafts of the Nordic Cup logo. These will go out in a survey tomorrow. I apologize that the font is a little fuzzy, or maybe that's just mine and Randy's eyes. When these logos go out tomorrow, this font will be with them. Dennis Healy, is Dennis here? Dennis is a Nordic parent, and he volunteered all of his time to create the 3 potential logos. And the text underneath each logo just gives a brief description of what the creator was thinking when he created the logo. So these surveys will go out tomorrow. They'll close on Friday, and at some point early next week, we will make an announcement either via email and the website of which logo we will be moving forward with Nordic Cup 17. At this time, I'll turn it over to Coach Gowdy.
Okay, for those of you that just showed up towards the end, there are plenty of seats in here, so feel free to come and up the front. And then also, just make sure as well, we do have the raffle tickets for the Montreal Impact game, so make sure that you all get one of those each, and then we'll do the draw towards the end. All right, so we want to use this moment here just to make recognition of all the sponsors that we have within the club. Obviously, our biggest sponsor is Peak CM. So as you know, they've got their logo. They sponsor the uniforms. This is year one of the 2-year sponsorship that we've got with them. And we've been fortunate enough over the years, this is their second 2-year cycle that they've sponsored the uniforms. And then as you all see from the indoor centre out there with the screen, in between the practice field and the game fields in there. So we are very grateful to Jerry Davis with Peak CM for their continued support of Nordic Soccer Club. The two main sponsors for the indoor centre, for the game shirts, Pizza Putt, that's a continuing sponsorship that we've had with them. And then also with Buska Worldwide Movers. Adam is a parent with Nordic. He's got a daughter on our 2003s team, so we thank both Buska and Pizza Putt in there. And then as you can see, every time you come into the indoor centre, we've got all the banners out there. So many thanks and recognition to all the different sponsors that we have out there for the banners as well. All right, so in my report as the Director of Coaching, I'm going to look back a year, so going back to this point last year. And then obviously, as the email said, we've got a couple of exciting new pieces of information that's going to be coming up in the year ahead for us. So what we'll do is we'll look at the year in review. So the big talking point this time last year was the transition of the format of the teams from what was the old August 1st to July 31st format, which is basically your school years, to the birth year. And just to give you an idea, as a club, a year ago, we had 340 players in the club. And despite some of the worries that were out there and the effect that it would have on the club, our current number is 365. So we're currently actually up by 25 players over where we were at this point last year, despite, with the change in the new formats. And I would say that the dust has settled for the most part. Kids are getting used to their new teams, new coaches, and we're moving forwards. This past winter, we have had the most indoor games up in Montreal than we've ever had. We continue to build on that relationship. We've made, in Montreal, good relationships with Montreal Impact. We had some teams that went up there and played at their facility, outdoors, just outside the Olympic Stadium for those players, and I think some of those players were here. That was a fantastic experience for those players. We've also played them indoors as well. And we continue to improve that relationship with the Impact. Last August, some of our coaching staff got to go up and watch a Real Madrid practice session behind closed doors. So that was a cool experience for those coaches. And then we also had 2 players that went up there last year and tried out for the 2003s. So we continue to work on that relationship with the Impact. And then the 2 big clubs that we've had a lot of success with this year, this winter, has been Duval and Pierrefonds, both from Montreal. For those of you that have been up to Montreal, they are very fortunate. They have about 10 indoor facilities that are full field. That is our dream, to have one of those. Like I said, in Montreal, they have many of those facilities, so we're looking, and we will continue to try and improve that experience where our teams can go up there and get that full field experience. It's very tough for our players not to see a full-size soccer field from sometimes late November, early December, right through till March. So the more games that we can continue to go up to Montreal, and it's good competition as well. We've also continued our partnership, our relationship with Upper Valley Lightning. We had a date, unfortunately, that got cancelled just before Christmas, where we went down there to their facility, and then they've also had some teams coming up in there. So, as I said there, we've had more indoor game opportunities this winter than any other winter. High school season, so going back to the fall of 2016, Nordic soccer players again dominated. If you saw the teams, the all-state teams, the all-conference teams, and what have you, there was on the girls' side especially, the Burlington Free Press all-state team was, I think, 7 or 8 of the 11 players were Nordic players. So a lot of our players did very well during their high school seasons. And probably the key one there, or the top one there, was Brenda McMahon. She is on our 98s, and she is headed where, Marcel?
She is headed to Poughkeepsie.
She's going to Poughkeepsie. Vassar, thank you. She's heading up. She's a senior at Colchester High School. She was the All-American, and she's heading off to Vassar to go play. The next piece there, the class of 2016. So these are the kids that are now freshmen in college. They graduated in June of 2016. And for me personally, and well, for us as a club, this is a huge piece. It's not just about the wins and losses, it's our players and the character that they build and certain life skills that they learn through playing for Nordic soccer that takes them on, hopefully, into college and beyond. So we had 30 graduating players this year. All 30 of those players went to college. So I think that in itself is a very impressive statistic. And then, you know, the icing on the cake there was of those 30 players that went on to college, 22 went on to play college soccer. That is a continuation of the amount of players that develop within Nordic and go on to play at the college soccer. We do have an alumni page on the website, so if you want to see that list of players, it goes back to sometime in the 90s, so it's a very impressive list of players. ODP, we've got more players this year than any other year that are part of ODP regional pools and regional teams. So on the boys' side, Caden Button, Neil Kanarick are part of the 2004 boys. Neil made the regional team, and I believe he is going on a European trip in the next couple of months. Dad here?
I don't know about that trip, but I want to go.
Oh, okay. All right. My bad. Never mind.
He is going to Virginia this week.
Okay, the Virginia friendly. Sorry, my bad. All right. And then with the 2003, I'll give you a heart attack then, didn't I? All right, now I got this one right. So on the 2003 boys, you've got Owen Green, Chance, Rose, Oliver Martin, and Peter Sharstein all made the 2003 boys regional pool. And then Oliver Martin and Peter Sharstein made the regional team and are headed to London in April, correct? Charlotte Hill, she got the short straw here. All right, she also made the regional team. She's going to Scotland in March. I'm quite sure she knows what she's in for there. That would be very interesting. And then we'll leave the best one till last. So Natalie DeRue and Nesta McIntosh made the 99 girls pool. Natalie DeRue made the team, and she's going to Italy in April. So she definitely got the good end of the deal there. So that's looking at our year in review. And then, you know, we at State Cup, we also had a very successful year. We had 7 teams that won state championships and went to West Virginia, which was up by 2 teams from the previous year. All right, Go Nordic. As you know, we have this program within the club, formed by Maya Barve and now continued by Craig Stone. So we appointed Craig Stone as the executive director for the Go Nordic program in September. And we are going to have a couple of events to kind of kickstart the spring coming up. So the weekend of the 1st and 2nd, we are looking at having a big sister, little sister mentoring event. It'll be here at the indoor center. We're going to get all the girls in. We're going to introduce the younger girls, the 7s, the 6s, the 5s, to the older girls. We're going to pair them up, and we want to create this mentoring system where, you know, our 7s and our 6s can see, you know, what it's like once you get to those older age groups with the 99s, the 98s, the 2000s. And then vice versa as well. For some of those older kids, the opportunity to get to meet our younger players, maybe pass on some advice. And, you know, they'll be doing a little skill session in there as well. And then the other piece that we're going to be doing is we're going to have Peter Kim come in. Peter's the head women's soccer coach at Middlebury. Has been very successful He's won some NESCAC titles, taken his team to the Elite 8 or the Sweet 16 or the Final Four a couple of times. So Peter's done very well down at Middlebury. We're very pleased to say that he's going to come in and he's going to do a couple of coaching clinics working with individuals, working with the teams, and that's all going to be part of the Go Nordic program. All right, now the reason we put our mission statement on that front slide as you came in was to make everybody aware. The piece for me in here, and this is all now we're going to start talking about the New England Premier League, the NEP League. All right, part of our mission statement there is we are looking to provide our players with the highest level of soccer coaching facilities, and this is the piece that we're talking about here, is the play available. That is our mission statement. That is what drives us. So with that in mind, the New England Premier League. All right, I'm going to give you a little brief history of Nordic teams in the past. Since 1998 to last summer, Nordic teams participated in the Y League. The Y League is a national organization. It has regional leagues, and Nordic was in the New England League for a number of years. Quality of the teams in that league was exactly what we were looking for. They had an ODP system. They had nationals. If you won your New England division, you went to nationals. Most of our older players, I'd say from U16, U17 upwards, have played in that Y League. Good quality games, and for the most part, those games were June, July, and August. It fitted in perfect with our VSL schedule. All right. In the last few years, as a lot of teams from southern New England have moved towards the NEP League, the Y League kind of morphed into a North Atlantic, Mid-Atlantic. So now instead of going down to Boston, going to Connecticut, going to Rhode Island for games, we were now going down to Long Island, New Jersey. So a couple of years, probably 3 or 4 years ago, we started looking into the Region 1 League. At the time, the Region 1 League was the most competitive and most viable soccer league in the New England area for us. But again, as a lot of the southern New England teams started to move over towards NEP, there was no New England representation, or there was little New England representation in that Region 1 League. So again, and there's a lot of parents in this room that did those trips. A couple of years ago, we started traveling to Buffalo, to Rochester, to Syracuse, to Long Island. I think last year we had teams going down to Philadelphia, southern New Jersey. So again, not the most viable league. The competition was fantastic. Some really, really good competition, regionally and nationally ranked teams. But just the travel commitment just became too much. And hence the reason why we are aggressively looking at leaning towards the NEP League. All right, I'm going to give you a quick pyramid here of the current landscape of youth soccer in the United States, just so that you can understand the different levels. So at the top level, you've got the United States Soccer Federation. They are the governing body in this country. They are the only organization that deals with FIFA at the international level. Underneath the USSF, you've got the MLS, the NASL, and the USL. Those are the professional leagues in this country. You've got the amateur leagues, the PDL, which is what the Vermont Voltage play in. US Club Soccer has some in there, and there is a multitude of indoor leagues and semi-professional leagues at that level. You've got college, you've got Y League, Super 20 at those college age groups, and then underneath that you have all the different youth organizations. You have Y League, you have US Youth Soccer, and you have NEP in there. You have US Club Soccer in there. We are currently part of US Youth Soccer for the most part. US Youth Soccer's representative here in the state of Vermont is the Vermont Soccer Association. Vermont Soccer Association runs State Cup, and they run the VSL League. So US Soccer has been around since '74. They are the largest youth soccer organization with 3 million members. They offer competitive and recreational leagues. As I said, they have state associations. There's 55 out of there. The US is split up into 4 regions. We are part of Region 1. Region 1 is the entire of New England, the Mid-Atlantic states, and all the way down to West Virginia and Virginia. And like I said, the VSA is the member that we are part of here, and they run the Vermont Soccer League as well. NEP is not part of US Youth Soccer. They are part of a separate organization called US Club Soccer. US Club Soccer is a lot younger. Okay, they were founded in 2001. They do not have as many members, but they are catching up on US Youth Soccer. There are a lot of clubs that are moving from US Youth Soccer to US Club Soccer. They are the fastest growing youth soccer organization in this country right now. So they offer recreational competitive leagues, and the leagues are not offered by US Club Soccer. US Club Soccer sponsors those leagues. So the NEP is actually run by clubs and by directors of coaching. Those clubs, those directors of coaching, they make the rules. US Club Soccer allows us to affiliate ourselves with those to register players. And so that's where it's slightly different from the US Youth Soccer piece. So, the New England Premier League. 19 different clubs from throughout New England. There are your clubs. Very heavy in Massachusetts. All right, I'll just go through them real quick. In Massachusetts, Aztec, GPS, Liverpool, FC USA, FC Boston, FC Stars, Seacoast, NEFC, SFC New England, Valio, Western United. Those are all teams, those are all clubs that we want to compete with. You know, we go to a lot of these tournaments, we go to GPS tournaments, we go to NEFC tournaments. Those are teams that we play against on a regular basis. Those are good clubs. Those are teams, those are clubs that we want to play against. The New England, the NEP League, has 1,300 teams. All right, so like I said, those numbers with US Club Soccer, they are increasing constantly. You've got the one club, CFC, out of Connecticut. You've got Bayside and Bruno United out of Rhode Island. Seacoast, GPS, Upper Valley Lightning out of New Hampshire. And then Seacoast and GPS out of Maine. So all of those clubs there are clubs that we would very much like to play. And just to give you an idea of some of the Massachusetts, that's a page from the Got Soccer rankings. I don't pay too much attention to those Got Soccer rankings, but I mean, if you look in there, and this slideshow will get sent out to everyone as well, so you can see in a bit closer detail in there. There's your top 20 teams in Massachusetts with the Got Soccer rankings, and I think at least the top 10, if not more, 15 of those 20 teams are playing in the NEP. So it is a good level of play. So, what are we going to do with Nordic in here? We are looking at entering 8 of our teams into the NEP League starting in the spring of 2018. So this is this time next year. U13s through U16s, boys and girls. So next year's U13s will be the 2005s. So we're talking next year's 5s, 4s, 3s, and 2s. Boys and girls. 8 teams. All of the Nordic teams will keep their current format. So U9s through U12s, you'll continue to play in the Vermont Soccer League, the indoor games, tournaments, the current format. The U17s and the U18s, they will not be part of NEP. They are doing college showcase. And I will get to a piece at the end which kind of outlines each team's individual roadmap for the season. But the 17s and 18s, they are on the college showcase circuit, so to say. So this is for those 8 teams. What does it mean? It's a 7-game season. Games start in early April and go right through till early June. 1 game a week. Sometimes there may be 2. NEP, and I'll get into this with the curriculum piece, is fixed in with the US Soccer, the best player recommendations from US Soccer. Is, you know, teams do not play multiple games in one day. So for the most part, we could very well be playing 1 game per weekend. Those games are on Sundays for those high school age kids that play spring sports. That means that you will be able to play high school spring sports. The reality of it is that we could very well have 7-game season with all 7 games on the road. And we could very well be driving down every weekend down to those clubs down in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, or Maine. In my discussions with NEP on us applying to the league, there's a good chance, or there's a chance of us getting home games against Upper Valley, against the New Hampshire teams. But for the most part, those are the games, part of the criteria, part of the conditions for our entry as a club to get in that NEP league is that we're playing all of our games on the road. So that's the reality in there. There are multiple divisions in every age group. So at some of those middle age groups, the 13s and 14s and 15s, they have 7 different divisions, 6, 7 different divisions. So there are various levels of play. So our job as a club will be to make sure that we place our teams in the correct division. We don't want to lose 10-0, we don't want to win 10-0. Those kind of games are not good for player development. So we will look there to place our teams at the appropriate level of play. Talked about the games been on the road, games on Sundays, so that we don't have those conflicts with high school sports. And then the next piece here, very important, if we do NEP, we will not play Vermont Soccer League, we will not do State Cup, and we will not do regionals. So, getting that out there to everybody. Now, one of the questions that will come up when I met with a lot of the teams earlier on is the cost and the amount of travel. It is going to be our recommendation to those 8 teams that you do not go to a tournament Memorial Day weekend, and obviously you will not be doing regionals. So if you think the travel and the hotel costs that are associated with Memorial Day weekend, that is a minimum of 2 nights, sometimes 3 nights in a hotel room. And then also when you go to lovely West Virginia for regionals, that is those are laughing have been there obviously, that is a 4 to 5 night hotel. So those 6 to 8 to 9 hotel room nights that you would do Memorial Day weekend or regionals, you would no longer, as parents, I'm a former Nordic parent, so I've been there, I know the expenses that are involved with this. All right, so you would save money on the hotels Memorial Day weekend and regionals instead of those 7 games in there. So there is a little bit of trade-off in there, and hopefully that's the piece that will appease everybody in there.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
and coming from the earlier school of the travel, this season ends earlier. So you're not in July and August.
Correct.
Where we're trying to gain some family time for vacations and
Yep.
recreation in our own state.
Yep. I mean, you could very well be Nordic Cup and done. And then the last piece in there is, and we would throw this out as an opportunity to each of our teams, US Club Soccer has their own state cup. There is not a state cup in in Vermont, but US Club Soccer does have a state cup in New Hampshire. And where the rules are different with that is, as a Vermont team, we can enter the New Hampshire State Cup for US Club Soccer. If we really wanted to, we could enter the California State Cups
Or
for US
Hawaii.
Club Soccer. Or Hawaii. Bit of travel involved with that one. But we would offer that opportunity to our teams. Again, I looked at last year's New Hampshire State Cup with US Club Soccer. It was very competitive. It was the #1 Seacoast team. It was the #1 GPS team. And if you win State Cup in New Hampshire, you go directly to nationals. There is no regionals. It's directly to nationals. So when we would put that information out there to the teams. Nationals last summer was in Colorado. And nationals this year, I believe, is going to be in Indianapolis. So we would throw that out to the teams as well as the 7 games with NEP. You'd also have the opportunity to do the US Club Soccer. All right, so aligning ourselves, we're going to get to this piece in the curriculum piece, is with the 1 game per week and the competitive games, it aligns ourselves with the US soccer recommendations for player development and those guidelines that go along with that. All right, like I said, it's probably going to be, it It's the most viable league for our teams at those age groups in the New England New England area right now, because the current setup of VSL, State Cup, and regionals is not necessarily offering our players the development that we're looking at. We need to raise that bar with our players, and unfortunately, sorry to say, but VSL, State Cup, and regionals is not offering that to our players and our teams right now. Before I move on, Greg.
How does this NEP marry with the ODP program? Where players are developing within ODP and now they've got commitments with NEP, how can they do both? Does it allow for both of those to happen?
Yep. So, firstly, US club soccer does have its own ODP system as well. It's not kids showing up and trying out and whatever. It's based on coaches' recommendations. They have scouts that go to games. Players can get selected for that. And similar to US youth soccer, ODP, they have camps, mini camps, regional camps, national teams, and so on and so forth. So that's one option. I'm presuming that you are referring to US youth soccer, ODP. So our players can still do both. I cannot guarantee you that there will be conflicts. There could very well be conflicts between the two. As a club, we'll do our best to minimize those conflicts. I mean, it's no different than what it currently is. So, but kids can do both. They would need. I've already spoke to Meg Munson with VSA, and it would just be a case of just making sure that those players, because our players will at those age groups will not be registered with Vermont Soccer Association. So we would need to register them with Vermont Soccer Association, $15 fee, and then those players could do ODP as regular. But regards to the scheduling piece, there's no guarantees there. Any other questions regards the NEP League? Yes?
Where does that leave the club teams?
The club teams will continue with their current schedules. Yeah, I mean, they've got a good enough, good enough schedule. I mean, you're talking the younger age groups, the older age groups?
There's a U14 team.
Yeah. So they would just continue with their current schedules. Like I said, this is 8 teams, 13s through 16s, premier teams, boys and girls. You know, when I met with about 10 teams back in the fall when we initially threw that out there, and the cost, the travel was a big piece at the time. And you know, the piece that we're throwing in there is that potentially you would not do Memorial Day weekend and you would not do regionals, and that's where the trade-off is with the travel and the cost for that. So my goal will be over the spring is to meet with each of these age groups individually and kind of go through that, because I know, you know, there's a lot of parents in, that's good, but there's obviously going to be parents that, you know, and this is going to go out as an email to folks as well, so it's got to be out there, and the club educating the parents as the direction that we're going in and why we're going in this direction. Any other questions about the NEP League? Yes.
So initially when we were in, we have to travel, is that going to change down the road?
My understanding is, you know, that would be part of the criteria, is for us to be a member of that club, of the Premier NEP League would be for us to play those games on the road. You know, we can convince the Upper Valley Lightnings, I know Synergy in that league as well, maybe some of the GPS New Hampshire teams. You know, they try and make it as well where the clubs do their own schedule. So instead of us driving to Rhode Island or Connecticut, if it's scheduled as our home game, if I can get a home field somewhere in New Hampshire, a middle meeting point, game on. So it might not be the case of us driving all the way down to that. That's why I say it's club driven. So if the two clubs can agree to that, then you're on.
So
Yes?
What do the teams do? So you said this goes from April to June. What's their format for the rest of the year?
I've got a slide later on
Okay.
that will describe that piece. At those age groups, yeah,
for-
yeah,
I mean, it sounds like if they're in the club, then it's business as usual for us as a parent.
yeah.
But as a consideration, what do they do the rest of the year?
Yep.
Or something like that.
I've got one slide in there. I'll get to that piece in a minute. Any other questions about NEP? Yes?
You mentioned the NEP selection versus another league or group that we could have been part of. And I'm curious, like, how did you make that decision? You said this one is smaller compared to the other. I'm just curious, pros, cons, like one over the other.
Frustrations with US soccer, with the Region 1 League. I mean, you've been there with the 13s last year. You know, when we're starting to travel to Rochester, Syracuse, and so on, and then they changed the format again this year. We'd have been going out of Virginia for 4 days for one tournament and somewhere else for another tournament. So US youth soccer is struggling in the New England area. And, you know, for that level of play that's part of our mission statement, the NEP League right now is the most viable league that's out there within this area. So. Greg?
Just a side question. Are there opportunities to play in competitive leagues up in Quebec?
I've tried. And excusez-moi pour le français, mais je n'ai pas compris. I had to translate emails. Google Translate from French to English is excellent. But they are very stubborn. They are very Quebecois. And for every game that we go to Canada, in a real league game, we would need to get permission from USSF and a $30 fee for every single game. One league, the real strong Quebecois, was no, not happening. The other league were semi-receptive, but it's a lot of administrative work. Believe me, I would love to go up there. There's some fantastic facilities and some really good competition. Like I said, with the indoor piece, we'll continue to develop those relationships.
And it's an area that we continue to navigate and try to work through, especially since the birth years now align. But, you know, in terms of some of the stuff that's going on in our country, you know, we're really trying to be advocates of getting Canadian teams into Nordic Cup. We're starting to get word from some Canadian teams because they have, you know, a lot of ethnic players on their teams. They're not willing to travel just because there's too much uncertainty at this time. So there's some significant challenges there for us going there as we move forward, as well as for them coming here. You know, this is an area that we looked at years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, and the Quebec Soccer Federation, just not interested. But we will continue to try to work that avenue because they're great games and great facilities.
Yes.
Since it's more heightened play, will they practice more? I mean, I'm seeing those teams, so
That's very much a possibility. I mean, part of the curriculum development that we're going to get into is the guidelines. And US Soccer's guidelines are 1 game per week and 2 to 4 practices per week based on age. When we find the multi-millionaire that's going to build us one of these nice soccer centres, similar to the ones in Montreal, we'll be able to offer that. But as Marcel bangs his head against the table every day, time is a premium in this indoor soccer centre. So, but I mean, right now, we've upped it to 3 times a week with the technical training option. So, I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right, so we will move on to the curriculum development piece. All right, so there'll be an email going out on Wednesday. I'll let the Nordic Cup logo email go out tomorrow. And then come Wednesday, there'll be an email going out introducing the Nordic curriculum development that we are going to be introducing to all of our parents. All right, we are going to align ourselves with the US soccer guidelines and best practices. There's 2 documents that came out from US Youth Soccer in 2011 and 2016. Probably the one in 2016 is the one that you're more familiar with, and that was the change of the size of the goals, the amount of players on a team at certain age groups, and then the big one was obviously the change to the birth year teams. But back in 2011, US Soccer came out with a recommended best practice and coaching curriculum that they would hope that all clubs would follow, and we are going to align ourselves with the language from that curriculum. Within the Nordic club, we have 26 teams. The reason for getting this coaching curriculum is to get all of those 26 teams on the same page. All right? Part of our philosophy here at Nordic is you're going to have a coach for 2 to 3 years, and you move on and you get a different coach in 2 to 3 years. So within those 2 to 3 years, with those different, throughout your Nordic life, so to say, from U9s to U18s, You're going to have different coaches, different styles. We want these coaches to be preaching off of the same sheet, so to say, as in that coaching curriculum. All right, so as parents, when this curriculum comes out, there'll be 4 links that are in there, and you can go in and you can dig deep and read the literature that's come out from US Soccer as to what they want us to be working on as a club with our players and with our teams. All right. In the end, this is what we want to develop. We want to develop technically proficient soccer players who understand the game and make excellent decisions. All right. On the women's side, the US is very successful. All right. For the most part over the years, it's been because they're bigger, stronger, and faster. All right. A lot of the European countries don't have the same college system that the US does. That's why the US has been as successful as it has. The rest of the world on the women's side is catching up or has caught up. There's a lot more technical players out there on the women's side. All right? On the men's side, not had as much success. And hence the reason for US soccer, as it should be, at the higher levels, dictating to the clubs down below what they want us working on with our players. All right? I know Marcel is a huge fan. Jürgen Klinsmann was the coach that got this all going. Nobody misses him. Nobody misses him. All right, but Coach Klinsmann was the gentleman that got this going with some of his former players, Tab Ramos, regards getting all of the clubs within the country working on the same development schedule with their players. So like I said, the curriculum was released in 2011 by the US Player Development Task Force, recommended practice after a 5-year study of what we should be working on with our players as part of their development. All right, and like I said, I mean, on the men's side, they're trying to get the US men. It's very easy for us to go out there and throw out a whole bunch of dollars and say we're going to win the World Cup. But as you've seen, it's not quite happened right now, so and hence the reason for this. The US Soccer Development Academy was part of those initiatives. So in 27, the US Soccer Development Academy, select amount of clubs from throughout the country, which has now grown. I believe there's now 90 development academies throughout the US. And then, like I said, in 2016, all those player development initiatives, they've reduced the amount of players at the U8s. You know, they've gone to the 9v9 for the U12s to the bigger goals. They've moved us to calendar year now, which is the same as the rest of the world. So they've aligned ourselves there in the hope that we will continue to or do a better job of developing our players. What this means for Nordic is we are optimal player development for all of our players, and we want to give those players every opportunity to play at the highest level possible. Help them with their dreams. Like I said, with part of that alumni, 22 out of those 30 players went on to play college soccer. It'd be very nice if we could get a player going on to MLS from within this state. And it's just not a case, you know, this is what takes a long time. You know, it's getting in with those 2007s, those 2008s, those 2009s, teaching them the right techniques at the right age group. So when they get to be 16 or 17 years old, like the piece says back here, they are technically proficient players. The curriculum will be age appropriate. So the club, we split into 3. You've got the younger teams there, the 9s, the 10s, the 11s, and the 12s. Part of those US soccer recommendations a few years ago was not to tier teams at those younger age groups. All right. I went through it with my own son when he was a U9 or U10. If you made the Premier team, you were happy. All right. And on any given day, the difference between the kid that was 10 and made Premier and the kid that made 11 and made club, that can differ from day to day depending on the weather, what kind of mood the kid's in. It's really difficult for us as coaches to tell the difference. And kids develop at different rates. So their recommendation was that those younger age groups is we've got to do away with Premier and club, and we develop a pool of players. So that is what we've been doing at the club now for about the last 4 or 5 years, is aligning ourselves with those recommendations. At the younger age groups, technique, 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 technique. and trying to put it in a fun-filled environment where there is not that much pressure. The pressure to make the A team, to win state cup. So we like to think we're doing that with those younger age groups, the 9s, 10s, and 11s. Take them out of that, the heat, the pressure, and allow them to enjoy the game and develop as soccer players. The younger age groups there, the 13s and 14s, U12 is the first year where we start to tier teams towards the, after the fall season. So 13s and 14s is where you start to go Premier. And as we're going to go into the NEP League here, you start to expand, you start to spread your wings, you start to travel outside of this little cocoon that we are here in Vermont and go and experience the real world. Again, age-appropriate practices at those age groups is still pretty heavy on technique, but you also start to throw in some of the tactical part of the game as well as you move to those bigger fields. And then obviously with the older age groups there, the 15s, so that's all the high school age teams, start to do the advanced tactics, still continuing with the technique, but the percentages for each of those three differs as you move up in the age groups. And again, this will all be in part of what's on the website. So what that coaches are getting right now is something similar to this. All right, we are signed up with a software system called Sports Session Planner. All of our coaches have access to this, where they can go in, they have access to a club library, and they also have access to a worldwide library. So when a coach, and there are professional coaches from throughout the world that are part of this group, so when Alex Ferguson designs a session, it gets posted in this worldwide library that all of our coaches have access to. So our coaches have been receiving sessions like this from myself as the director of coaching, from Craig Stone as the youth technical director, and then the older coaches, like I said, have access to this in there when they can go in and design. And part of that link will be you'll all have access to see this, so you can see a sample session of what they're going, and it all aligns in with those US soccer best practices at the different age groups. So what this means for our coaches, all right? We are going to be asking our coaches to develop a demanding environment in the training sessions and in games. My biggest beef is when we're in this little cocoon up here in Vermont, our kids tend to go through the motions to some extent. And all of a sudden, when we go out of state and we play Pierre Fonds from Montreal and we get our backsides handed to us, there is a whole different world out there. We can't afford to just go through the motions in our practices here for the 4 or 5 months that we are indoors. Our coaches are going to be demanding that our kids step it up in practices and in games. And like with my 2002 boys, we practice with intensity. Every single practice needs to be done with intensity. And the same with the games as well, because there is a whole different level out there, and we've got to raise the bar with our kids in practices and games whilst we're in here. So we're making the exercises competitive. The coaches are going to be following the curriculum. Like I said, each coach, I coach differently than Marcel. Coach is different than Greg. So it's all different styles, and the kids will pick up little pieces from each coach as they work their way through the Nordic cycle. So I want each of those coaches to keep their own individual coaching style, but keeping to the theme of the curriculum. I love it when my coaches ask me questions. Greg is probably the best one out there. Every time I throw a session at him, he's always testing me. He's always questioning me. I love that. Okay, Greg's gone out. He's gone and done his D license, and he's also coached at various levels throughout the country as well. And he's always adding little tweaks in there. So I'll continue to ask the coaches for that as well. Part of that will be to provide the players with honest, constructive feedback. All right, we want our kids to know exactly where they stand. I've just gone through evaluations with my players this week. I'm going to be asking the same of the coaches during this February school break. We've got a software system that we use is to be giving players some feedback during that time, so they know now. It's kind of like a halfway point for some of our teams as to parts of their game that they need to work on. So here's the calendar that I was talking about from earlier on. Again, this is on the website, and it shows the different age groups throughout the club and the different times of year. So you've got your junior programs, your U6s, your U8s, all right? They have options. Theirs is optional. They can sign up for the fall season, session 1, 2, 3, and then the spring season. And these are the different competitions or levels of play that we offer. 9s and 10s through 11s and 12s. And this will be the same as well. We're going to offer the fall season for those age groups. We will even with the NEP League, we will still continue to offer that for those younger age groups. Teams in here, for the most part, you do an indoors, session 1, session 2, session 3. The older age groups, you 15 and up, you are high school. So we do not see those kids at all until November. And all of a sudden November comes around and we are 100 miles an hour with college showcases. So when you get to that, for the most part, 16, 17, 18, so sophomores, juniors and seniors, you're on the college showcase circuit at that point in November and December. All right, those older teams do session 2, and like we talked about here, for those teams that will be doing the NEP League, come March, April, you are going to be outdoors. We've got practices scheduled for South Burlington for the 5th of March. And I went by there today, and I'm very optimistic. Snow is I went there last week, and the difference between last week and this week is huge. So I am really hoping. So if you are on those U13s through U17 Premier teams, you're going to be outdoors as quickly as we can. And there you go. You can see your spring schedule there for the most part. All those younger teams, you're going to be doing the VSL. We will do State Cup at U12s. All right, but obviously this is this year's. So this spring season for those teams there is VSL, tournaments, Memorial Day weekend, State Cup, Regionals, Nordic Cup. So that is a map. And again, in this email that's going to go out on Wednesday, there are links to this, so you can dig down deep in there and see this a bit more detail than what's up on the screen on there. Does that answer your question? Yep. All right. I know the real reason everybody's here is because you want these 2 tickets for the Montreal Impact. Oh, yeah. Fire away. Sorry. My bad.
I just had a question on curriculum. Do you guys do anything, playing at that high level with these kids with nutrition and what they should be eating to sustain that intensity?
Yeah,
Clinics or just, as parents, we can talk to them, but I think it comes a lot more from coaches.
we
Trying to sustain their
Yeah.
energy and.
We have had speakers come in. I know the one that came in firstly was part of the Go Nordic program, but it was open to the rest of the club as well. But continue to look to get speakers in there on the different topics, of which nutrition is one of them. Yes, definitely.
It's on the website,
It's on the website.
on the Nordic website.
Another question, Jim?
Nutritional information, what the kids should be eating, so it's on there.
And you got the bowl? Did everybody get a ticket?
Do you have a question up front?
All right. Yes.
I have a quick question, back to what you were talking about, the coaches. So my observation, I know I'm not the only parent, is the kids have played quite a lot of games without a coach on the field with them. A lot of games and a lot of practices where you've got 1 or 2 coaches, but especially the games where the kids are playing by themselves. So how is that gonna be addressed moving forward? Because I think it's doing them a disservice.
You're talking about for the indoors?
Yeah,
Okay. So
a couple outdoors too last fall.
I would hope not for the fall.
There was at least 2 games, I believe,
Where there was no coach.
that somebody else stood in, not knowing the kids, not knowing,
But there was a coach there though, a Nordic coach.
there's at least 1 game, wasn't my son was on a parent talked about, that
Right.
did not know the kids at all.
I mean, sometimes we have to get a coach to
Yes.
cover.
But there's been a lot indoors, for sure. Indoors, there's been a lot of games where there's 1 coach trying to take care of 2 games. And
Right,
that's
okay,
been- that's
yeah,
been
so
really difficult.
regards that piece, I want you to think of an educational perspective here, okay? So, kids in school, okay? When you're in class, when the teacher is teaching, that's like the soccer practices. The game is a test. It's the exam. I coach my team. I've got 2 teams playing at the same time. I sit on the halfway line, sitting in between the 2. Just like when your kid's in an exam, would you want a teacher standing over your kid and giving him all the answers?
Oh, absolutely not, but I think the level of play then changes between the kids. I know the night that Kyle was hurt, there was not a coach with that game, and I think the level of play with the kids, because they don't know how to either rein themselves in or to either calm it down or do whatever, there isn't a coach there to kind of say, you know, pull it down a little bit or do this better, you know, giving them that off the field that I see, which is great, but, you know, I've seen that happen a few times.
I mean, I'm asking my coaches to sit on that halfway line in between the two fields, observe, let the kids play, they can figure it out themselves, and then to make any coaching points at half time between the two teams. So we've got to get the kids, it's the mentality, again, with the US soccer, that they want us to stop over-coaching. We are not doing our kids a favour by telling them everything. It's that perspective. When your kid's in an exam at school, when he's in a test, that teacher, last time I was in the school, they sit in the corner and they are quiet, they're reading a book, and the kids are on their own, trying to learn how to play, and that's what we need to bring back into the game in this country.
Are kids aware of that, though?
It's a great point that you make.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's been a little bit of a learning curve this year, moving to the five-a-side. And one of the reasons for moving to five-a-side was that we're putting kids in an environment where there's more touches. You know, and probably the counterpunch to that is that there's a little bit less adult supervision, which from your perspective is a negative. From other people's perspective, it actually might be a positive, because there's a little bit more freedom to be creative and to have some fluidity within the game. But that's, I did make a note that that is something that Jim and I will look at as we plan for indoor next year. You know, one of the things that happened in session one, Jimmy called me and said, we got a coach on field 1 and 3. We got to sit down and we got to go through the whole schedule and see who can we accommodate and just flip fields in terms of the games. So that is something that we've been conscious about. We don't always get it right, but it is something that we are aware of.
I just want to back up that point, that she's not alone in saying this. I think this year, especially since you're combining kids who are from different age groups in previous years, and indoor, there are a lot of new kids coming to Nordic that haven't played Nordic before. It's one thing to let people, you know, the kids work things out in the field, but if they've never played before, if it's their first time with Nordic, you can't expect them to figure it out, and that's where the coaching, that's what we expect, and there's great coaching in Nordic, but if they're not there, it's not going to help.
Okay. Jackson, come here. All right, so this is the young gentleman that won the award earlier on. He was one of our outstanding citizens. Jackson, your mom received your... There you go. Hang on, get back here. You're not done yet. No pressure.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully everybody's got a ticket, yes? You're not here, so 2 tickets, Montreal Impact, Saturday the 11th of March in the Dome. It's indoors against the reigning MLS champions, Seattle Sounders. And I got an email this morning. They've sold 32,000 tickets so far, which means the whole of the bottom level is full. They're actually going to open up the top piece now, so it should be a very good game to go to. Get your tickets out. He's going to pick 1 ticket. All right.
Must be present to win.
Must be present to win. I think everybody's ticket starts with 469. 5042. 469 5042. There you go. Well done. All right, we'll sort that piece out there. Thank you all very much for attending. Very much appreciate it. There is still a bunch of food and drinks back there. Help yourselves.
If anybody has questions, Jimmy and I will be around.